This episode is sponsored by Bow Lake, the most beautiful paddle boards in the world. Visit bowlake.com and learn more. That's B-E-A-U lake.com. Bow is French for beautiful. B-E-A-U lake.com.
You're listening to The Luxury Item, the podcast on the business of luxury and the people and companies that are shaping the future of the luxury industry. Here's your host, Scott Kerr.
My guest on The Luxury Item is one of the most highly regarded master chefs and hospitality entrepreneurs in America today. Since the beginning of his celebrated career, Charlie Palmer has received critical acclaim for his signature progressive American cuisine, a style built on rambunctious flavors and unexpected combinations with a deep and lasting infusion of classical French technique. Palmer is best known for Aureole, his flagship restaurant in New York City, which was situated in a historic townhouse off Manhattan's Madison Avenue, and it earned 13 Michelin stars and 2 James Beard Awards. Over the years, Charlie Palmer has received over 20 Michelin stars and currently consults 13 food and beverage outlets through the Charlie Palmer Collective. Most recently, he has launched Appellation, a new hotel company aimed at sharing the language of food and embracing what it means to be authentically local. Charlie Palmer is also author of 6 cookbooks and is the recipient of numerous awards, including Best Chef New York City. He has also been inducted into the James Beard Foundation's Who's Who of Food and Beverage in America. Food and Wine magazine has said of Charlie, Palmer is widely regarded by food lovers as a pioneer who realized decades ago that there was a strong demand for great food in America, not necessarily French. Welcome to The Luxury Item, Charlie.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. So I want to start by sort of talking about the little walk down memory lane you had last month here in New York City. Your iconic fine dining restaurant, Aureole, which has been open for 32 years in New York City location and essentially launched you to culinary stardom, made a special brief reappearance in the form of a 3-day pop-up experience at the Knickerbocker Hotel. What was that whole thing about?
Yeah, well, it really was like kind of revisiting, Aureole over the last 30 years of inception, and probably most importantly, bringing together some of those what have now become iconic chefs that have been part of Aureole, at different times of its iteration. So, it was a lot of fun to bring a lot of our chefs together, Chris Engel and Marcus and Brian Voltaggio and Richard Leach, who was the original pastry chef when we opened on 61st Street back in 1988. So yeah, and it was really fun. And we we collectively decided what the menus were going to be for the 3 nights, and kind of showcasing a lot of dishes that originated at Aureole and the original Aureole, but also kind of looking to the future and adjusting and tweaking and kind of doing an updated version of some of those dishes together. So it was a lot of fun in planning it, and and I have to say it was certainly a lot of work doing it, but it was great to have everybody back together and fun. And the people, the guests that came, obviously it was to support City Meals on Wheels, which I've been on the board of directors of City Meals on Wheels for 24 years, I believe. Right. So that was fun, and we raised some money for a great charity, and had a good time doing it, and got to get together, with some of the guys and gals from the past. So it was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, I want to give my listeners some context here. So Charlie was 28 when he first opened his first restaurant, Aureole, in New York City in 1988. It earned several awards, including 13 Michelin stars, 2 James Beard Awards, before unfortunately closing its doors to COVID in 2020. Aureole was one of the city's most popular and revered restaurants. And prior to launching Aureole in your early 20s, you already had a warm spot in the hearts of New Yorkers as executive chef at the River Cafe here in Brooklyn. So was striking out on your own always part of the master plan?
Yeah, it really was. I was I am still very close with Buzzy O'Keefe that owns the River Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
And after being the executive chef there for, well, for a little over 4 years, and I became the chef of the River Cafe when I was 23, so at a very young
Right.
young age. But my aspirations and goals were always to own my own restaurant and take it from there. But the River Cafe was an amazing platform and stage to be able to practice your craft on, and a great stepping stone. But I always tell Buzzy, in the future that I am the heir apparent for the River Cafe. If he's ever if he's ever going to be passing it on and stuff. So, but a great spot. But yeah, opening Aureole in 1988, it was, I was basically a young kid with a good amount of experience because I'd been traveled in Europe and worked in France, worked in Belgium, and of course worked at a number of places in New York City, and then became the chef at the River Cafe when I was 23. So.
Yeah, and the River Cafe was also known for turning out a string of America's most highly visible chefs. Why do so many top chefs have a direct connection to the River Cafe?
Well, I think it started with Larry Forgione. It did start with Larry Forgione when he started his basically his adult career, I should say, as a chef there. And, it was an incubator in a lot of ways for a lot of young talent, especially American chefs coming out of the CIA and being nurtured and stuff. So, and it continues today. I think, Brad Steelman is, very close friend and chef that's been there now for almost 20 years. But the River Cafe is, like I say, was and still is kind of an incubator for culinary talent, and front of the house talent too, over many, many years.
And it was at Aureole that your signature style really emerged. I was reading an article where you were commenting on your culinary philosophy, and you said, I realized that American cuisine was just in its infancy, and I spent a lot of time thinking about what the idea of American cooking really meant to me as a chef. So was that the philosophy you took when you started Aureole, and how did you translate that into its menu?
Well, it really started at the River Cafe, and when I first opened Aureole, it really was my more personal kind of expression of what I felt and believed was an emerging and growing cuisine. But at the time, I was very cautious of labeling it American cuisine, because at that time, and still today, I mean, I think a cuisine is something that develops over hundreds of years, and I think my belief is that when I branded it progressive American cooking was really a better description of what we were practicing, what I was practicing in our team, and what I was teaching to our fellow people, chefs and coming up. But I think that a lot of that really has to do with the fact that, what we do today and what will someday could be called or deemed American cuisine is really happening. And it's what's the culmination of what a lot of us American chefs, but also, European chefs that have come and made the US their homes, will collectively do over the next, decades, that could really be called a cuisine. But that's why I always called it progressive American cooking, and still do, because every time you step in the kitchen, it seems like we're moving forward. There's this kind of momentum that we're creating new things. We're pulling inspiration from all types of different cuisine from around the world, but we're applying that to a very American kind of brand of cuisine.
So what was the overall vibe that you wanted to give off in the restaurant?
At Aureole in the beginning, I really wanted Aureole to be, and I described it all the time as the American Lutèce. And some people maybe remember Lutèce or remember the history of Lutèce, but at that time, at least in my mind, Lutèce was one of the most important and, probably the best French restaurant in New York at that time.
Right.
That's what it was, in a townhouse. I wanted Aureole to be in a townhouse. It was in a specific location. I wanted Aureole to be in a specific location. When I opened Aureole, my business partner, I said, we need to find a townhouse between 59th and 72nd, between 5th and Park, or at least 5th and Lex. And that's why we found this. So,
So when starting out, some well-known chefs have said they only cared about the food early on and eventually developed a customer service focus. What about you?
From the time I opened the restaurant and became, in essence, became a restaurateur as well as a chef, it's clearly to me about the experience, the overall experience. And, we can all say that it's only about the food and, like it to be only about the food. But, the reality is, it's creating that really, kind of really holistic experience of dining. That's why I admire like Danny Myers so much, and someone like that who isn't a chef, but certainly understands not only fine food and great cooking, but also understands the hospitality factor that you need to have to be great.
So almost 10 years after opening Aureole, you followed up with Astra, a cafe event space in Manhattan in 1997. After that, you started planting your flag across the land with a collection of award-winning bars and restaurants here in New York City, Las Vegas, Washington, D.C., and beyond. What have been some of the biggest challenges in managing and growing your brand footprint?
Well, I mean, I think it always boils down to the talent, the people, and building a team or teams of people that really understand the philosophy first and foremost. But then also really have the passion to do what, we all want to be, to be great. And I think, you can build amazing facilities and, $10 million restaurants, with all kinds of, amazing attributes. But at the end of the day, it's about the people that are practicing the craft in that, in that space or in that restaurant.
And in 2020, COVID restrictions grounded the nation's bustling restaurant industry to a halt. And I know that Charlie Palmer Collective took a hit as well. How did it force you to rethink your business model?
We totally, peeled it all back and started from the beginning, in every relationship, in every partnership that we have, every, how we do things, why we do things a certain way. Our business model in general, I think, was what my biggest concern was. We have this, these amazing teams of people and crews and I feel, first and foremost, I felt responsible for, the livelihood of, literally hundreds of people, that are loyal to, not only loyal to me, but loyal to our group and our restaurant company. And, from that, you make some very swift and, hopefully, good decisions about how we can take care of our people first and foremost. And then secondly, it was really about, what do we want to do going forward? Because, it's very easy in our business, and you see this all the time, for just to keep doing more and more. And, and then at some point you kind of ask yourself, is this what we really want to do? And is this what I really want to do? Because at the end of the day, we've been extremely successful, and we really don't need to do anything that we are not totally in love with and fascinated about or excited about, and that kind of thing. So, that was kind of the simple rule coming out of the pandemic, that, let's give a lot more thought into what we really want to be as a company and what I want to do as a person, And I think that happened to, a lot of people. They kind of reassessed their life in general and said, am I really doing what I love, or am I doing it because I got caught up into the success of things, or whatever that may be.
Did you make changes to your menu offerings to align with new customer needs coming out of COVID?
Oh yes, yeah. We tweaked, adjusted, rethought basically everything from the ground up, and also thought, probably most importantly, like what is it that people are going to, dining clientele are going to want to see going forward? I've had the good fortune of doing and creating menus exactly what I felt like, and very fortunate the fact that maybe not everyone, but most people loved it. But spending more time thinking, what is the dining public really yearning for or wanting to see? And you can't be everything to everyone. That's one thing that we are very conscious of too. But yeah, we've rethought everything, and I think in a really good way, and become a lot more focused on what our goals are, what we're trying to accomplish.
Employee retention has been an ongoing issue. So did you put in new programs as well?
Huge kind of more emphasis. I think we were, we were always, I think, great employers and partners with people. Like I always say, with people say, oh, when someone says, oh, I work for Charlie Palmer, it's like, no, we work together. No one works for me. We work together on a common goal, whether that's in the kitchen, in the front of the house, and the business side of things. We work together because I don't think anybody can deny that there's no one person that's creating success. It's a team of people. It's like-minded. It's everybody brings really huge attributes to what we do. No matter what, right down to the dishwasher that's making sure that our china is the cleanest in the world. It's really rethinking that, and then also putting us in a position where we really want to make sure that we're creating an ambassador program, which we always had in a loose way, but creating something that really honored the fact that those people that were really stepping up and really taking the extra step and really doing that thing were not only rewarded for that, but recognized for that, as in our group, and rightfully so.
Why do you think you've had such staying power in the dining scene when other chefs and trendy restaurants just come and go?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with what we do as a team appeals to a large audience, and I think sometimes taking your ego out of the equation, that being practical about what we do, especially from a menu side of things. I've always felt that, yes, some, people will pay a lot of money for a dining experience or whatever, but I think it's really important that people feel like they get value for what it is, no matter how expensive it is. If it's a $200 bottle of wine, if they can walk away saying like, yes, it was expensive. It was an expensive bottle of wine, but it was amazing and it was great. And same thing with a dinner. If they're paying, $150 check average, if they can, walk away saying like, wow, that was really, really, really good and amazing and delicious and everything about it. Yes, it wasn't inexpensive, but that's how I've always felt is a simple rule that we have to provide value.
We'll be right back after a quick break with more of my conversation with Charlie Palmer.
The most beautiful paddleboards in the world. Bow Lake. The water is calling.
We're back with more from Charlie Palmer. And it seems that food has become part of the zeitgeist, and so many people are demanding better food, and not just in restaurants. I mean, everywhere. I think all those food shows on TV have a lot to do with it. What do you think has changed when it comes to the way people view food?
I wouldn't say it's a changed. I would say it's evolved. And I'm a firm believer that the more knowledgeable that people that guests are, that people diners are about ingredients, about who's doing what, and food education in general, whether it's food television, whatever. That's the greatest thing that can happen to us as practitioners of dining, and fine dining and restaurants and chefs, because it wasn't so long ago where a good example would be that people were accepting frozen scallops, seared off and whatever, and not knowing the difference between something that was amazing quality and just okay quality, or even not great quality. Nowadays it's unacceptable. Like, I can remember in my early days of cooking, the La Côte Basque, every Dover sole that we sold was frozen Dover sole, and then during that time when we started getting fresh Dover sole, it was like amazing to me, but I couldn't honestly say that the dining public knew the difference or cared, honestly.
Right.
Now that's not the case, because I think in general, the level of knowledge and experience that people have, is really high, and the expectation is higher too. So they expect quality, and they're willing to pay for it, but they expect high quality ingredients first and foremost, and a high level of cooking also.
Last year, you and Four Seasons hotel veteran Christopher Hunsberger announced the launch of a culinary-focused hotel brand, Appellation. And Appellation means to give a name to a place. The idea behind Appellation is to cultivate community around food and the role it plays in bringing people together while exuding, as you call it, approachable luxury in accommodations and service. You've known Chris over the past couple of decades and have worked together on a few occasions. How did the idea for this unique hotel brand come about, and why was the opportunity exciting for you in the arc of your brand?
Well, first of all, there is no one of Chris's caliber in my mind that exudes hospitality more than he does. And I think when you think about the hotel experience or hospitality experience, what we're trying to do and what we will do with Appellation is create something that really doesn't exist today, that really brings the people and the craft and everything that happens in a very specific and amazing destination, whether it's Healdsburg, California, or Sun Valley, Idaho, or Pacific Grove, Monterey. Everything that's happening in those places, whether it's food, wine, craft, just the experience of the community that exists around in that area, that will allow our guests that comes to visit us at an Appellation property the chance to experience what it's like to live there, what it's like to be in these very special locations, even if it's for 2 nights or one day, for instance. It's and they bring in all the things that they would care or not care about that happen in that place, and rub shoulders with locals, because everything we do hotel wise is going to be focused on bringing the local community into the hotel, into the property, and giving our guests that are transient guests or guests from part of the country or the world the chance to rub shoulders and talk and experience what it's like to be in a place like Sun Valley, Idaho. Very special places. Appellation is bringing people together, bringing community together, and doing it in a way that, and that's where we refer to it as not 5-star over the top, formal luxury, but luxury on a level that is really comfortable. Good service, great service, personal service, and the very best of what's happening in that special place.
And how are you bringing your signature style to the cuisine?
Well, each one of these locations will have a very specific cuisine and restaurant component, or restaurants in some cases, both a restaurant, rooftop bar, in the sense of Healdsburg, the most, I think, crazy great catering facility that exists in Sonoma County, or maybe broader, but very specific to Healdsburg and very specific to Sonoma County. The cuisine, the restaurant itself will have a very focused focus on where we are and the ingredients, obviously, that grow there, and the winemakers that are next door, and that kind of thing.
So the first 4 locales to get the appellation treatment will be Healdsburg, California in 2024, followed by Sun Valley, Idaho in 25, and Petaluma and Pacific Grove, California in 26. With more down the line, I'm sure. What criteria is needed for a location to be considered as a possible destination?
Very unique and places that Chris and I want to go, quite honestly. I mean, that sounds a bit selfish, but we're interested in building a company that has a number of very unique destinations and places, but we're not looking to build 100 units. So we're not looking at 100 hotels here. We're looking at, over the next 10 years, maybe 8 or 9 or 10. So very limited. It's got to be a very special place for us to consider it.
So you said in an interview that great dining experiences are fueled by and connected to our relationships with farmers, vintners, and the complete culinary ecosystem. This connection to the community will allow us to provide a truly authentic, localized experience. So how do you go about building trust with the local farmers and growers and makers once you identify a location?
Well, I've had the good fortune of doing it for 20 years here in Healdsburg now. So, and I think that, in a lot of ways that gives me entree that no matter where we go, that they know, those makers, those growers, those people that are doing stuff, that we're serious about this and we're serious about being great local partners with them. So for me, that in a lot of ways, a lot of those people come to me to say, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing something very special, or in some sense, come to me as like, what can I grow for you? What can I grow for you that you would love to buy from me, but also, more importantly, be part of what you're doing there in that location. And that's a great situation to be in. I feel very fortunate that I've built these relationships in now a couple of different great locations, and, anything new kind of comes naturally, I guess you would say.
So I want to talk to you about the creative process. What is the process for creating a new dish, evaluating progress and coming up with ideas?
Well, I think it depends on the situation. Like a lot of things, like dishes, for instance, like we just did a wine dinner last night, and I wanted to create specific dishes for those wines. So that's one thing I've learned over the years of being, a big part in wine country, and I make wine, and, I have, partners in the wine business, and I grow grapes, I do it all. But it becomes very apparent to me from a chef's point of view that when you're doing, for instance, a wine dinner like we did last night, first and foremost, it's about the wine. It starts with the wine, because that wine has been created, it's been in the bottle, it's been aged for whatever amount of time. That wine is not changing. Whereas as a chef, I can go into the kitchen and say, okay, if I really understand this wine, the taste profile, the acidity, whatever attributes it has, I can go in the kitchen and say, like, in my mind, say, this would be great with this. And then you can start with an ingredient and create a dish, but then you can also tweak, you could add a little bit of acid or, a little bit more seasoning or salt or a nuance to the dish to make it a perfect pairing with that wine. So that's what we call, creating dishes specifically for wines. If I'm creating new dishes for the menu, for instance, which we're just starting like a dry creek kitchen, we're just, every month, basically, we change dishes. It starts with ingredients, i.e. we're getting these incredible, we have access to these incredible, German tomatoes, black tomatoes. I forget the name of them, but once we start getting those, I know what I want to do with them, or there's many things you can do with them, but it's kind of like, it starts with a single ingredient or a couple of ingredients, and then the dishes evolves from there. But it's really, centric on, when I'm getting these amazing quail from this guy that raises quail, and he does it in batches. So when I'm getting quail, I know what I'm going to do with those quail. I mean, there's many different things you can do with it, but it starts with that ingredient.
I want to get your thoughts on fine dining. A lot has been talked about the future of high-end dining. The past 20 years have witnessed a supernova of haute cuisine, an explosion of tasting menus and chef tables. The best restaurants have gone from, being in the background to the foreground of the cosmopolitan experience, becoming travel destinations in their own right. Top chefs are more than mere celebrities. They've become these cultural figures. Then the news broke at the beginning of the year that the world-class Danish restaurant Noma was closing its doors. Its founder said the pressure of producing high-concept dishes on a daily basis, of reinventing his menu again and again, doing all the while fairly compensating a staff of nearly 100 people, just wasn't sustainable. And around the same time, the horror comedy movie The Menu came out, and it spends most of its run skewering expensive restaurants and wealthy diners. Some say the era of conspicuous decadence in fine dining is over. Others just say the model is just flawed. What's your take on the future of fine dining?
Well, I don't think, fine dining is a big term, right? There's, I believe, many different levels of fine dining. And I think, take Noma as an example. I think what Renee has done with Noma over the years, and also understanding the history of Noma and, how it really started is a much smaller, more focused, concept. Certainly fine dining, but, evolved into something that's major. And, I speak a bit from experience. My youngest son just spent 6 months at Noma, a few months ago. He's a chef, by the way. Okay. And dining at Noma, an amazing dining experience. But I think, I think we have to all evolve. So will fine dining go away? Absolutely not. I don't believe that, in anything. Will it evolve over time? Absolutely. I think it is. A good example is when you talk about how much labor is involved in fine dining and the procedure or the progression or the service itself, that kind of thing. An interesting example that I thought recently that I saw, I won't name where it was, but is at the beginning of the meal or the progression of dishes, because it was many, many dishes. You as the guest were given a knife roll, basically a leather knife roll with probably 25 different service pieces, 3 forks, 2 knives, or 3 knives, chopsticks, different types of spoons, all in one delivery. So here's everything you need for your dining experience tonight. You choose as the guest what you want to use for what dish. But if you imagine as a restaurateur and someone that thinks about, the steps of service and how much labor is involved, that eliminated, I don't know how many man hours of work for a server that was going to reset the table or reset for each course or that whatever it is. But I just thought that was an interesting take on it. Certainly still very fine dining for sure, but a very interesting take on it and eliminating some of the labor that's involved in an experience like that.
So did you think it had to do with the labor, or it was a message that the chef was sending?
I think both. But at the end of the day, it certainly helped the labor side, because that, right. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. Like when Renee says he has 100 people in the kitchen, he's not kidding. Yeah.
Right.
So this, and it also, I think from a labor standpoint, it's the style of what we do that needs to be thought about too. Like, think about the style of what you do. If it's what we call very much tweezer food, and every ingredient, it demands a lot of labor, if it's less formal in presentation, it can be done and accomplished with a lot less labor, or at least less labor. I'm not saying a lot less.
Well, speaking of the horrors of fine dining and pop culture, the TV show The Bear wastes no time introducing you to the chaotic world in which it exists, immediately plunging you headfirst into, its claustrophobic center of a restaurant kitchen and cutthroat food scene, a militaristic regiment hierarchy, a lot of negativity, anger, throwing pans around, that sort of thing. Is that a pretty accurate portrayal of life in a restaurant kitchen and the emotional and physical cost that comes with it?
I don't believe that. There may have been a time where we could have said, yeah, that's what kitchens are like, or high-end kitchens are like, but it's at least in my estimation, it's not anything like that anymore. Yeah. Is there pressure in kitchens? Of course. Is there, is there a sense of, excellence takes, regiment for sure. But, I think at the same time, we all can agree that, what we're doing here is we're cooking and we're creating great food, and, and we're hopefully doing it with a lot of passion and joy. But at the end of the day, we're not saving lives. We're not surgeons. We're not saving lives. We're not in that pressure cooker, and I think we have to think of it that way. What we need to be doing is trying to give people joy. And if we can't do that without, throwing pots and pans and getting angry at people, then we probably shouldn't be in this business,
So you were mentioning early on about your affiliation with City Meals on Wheels, and you've been involved with City Meals for over 2 decades. And for listeners, City Meals on Wheels is a nonprofit that prepares and delivers food to homebound New Yorkers, and I know they do more. Can you talk about your charity work there?
Yeah, I mean, I got involved with City Meals on Wheels, like I said, 24 years ago. And obviously because of the relationship between, chefs and food that's, really nourishing someone that may not eat that day otherwise. But, it's an incredible charity that really not only provides, nourishment and real great food to a number of thousands of homebound elderly people in New York City and the 5 boroughs, but really is in some ways a lifeline for those people. That delivery sometimes is the only person or contact that person's going to have in a day. And there's been literally hundreds of examples of that person, the delivery person for City Meals on Wheels, delivering meals to someone that has, alerted them to a problem, or someone is, not in great health. Obviously, a lot of these people are because they're homebound, they're physically not in great shape. And, it's just something that's amazingly executed by a group of people that, are second to none. I've never seen anything like it. The commitment to taking care of people, the commitment of providing them with some really great, nourishment and great food.
Right.
My family's been involved with it with me. When my 4 sons were small, I would make them go with me on meal deliveries just so they understood, that this is something that's important. And maybe they're not involved in city meals, but they should be involved in giving back in some way. And I think that's in their adult lives now. I've seen that really, really come true and ring true for them. And I'm very proud of that, that they're involved in charity work and they give back. They understand it,
So Charlie, you have status as a world-renowned top chef, restaurateur, hotel owner, cookbook author, numerous awards and recognitions, and that sounds about as good as it gets. So what continues to challenge you?
Challenge? Having enough time to travel and experience things that I haven't experienced yet. I do my fair share of that. I mean, I can't complain, that's for sure. But Lisa, my wife, and I, we travel a lot. We're actually traveling tomorrow. We're going to Rioja to visit some friends that have started a music festival in Rioja, and I haven't been to Madrid in a couple of years, so we're going to spend a couple of days in Madrid and, of course, explore the food scene and Market San Miguel and all the great things that happen there. So, but yeah, no, I'm very fortunate. I'm very blessed. I have, 4 sons that are. One is an actual chef, so he's in the business. My oldest son, Cortland, is working with me now on the business side of things, but he's not afraid to step up and serve a guest in the restaurants, work with me in the kitchen. He's not a chef, but he knows his way around the kitchen. All my sons do. And I'm looking forward to a grandchild here soon in
great.
July.
So Charlie, my final question is the luxury item question, which I ask all my guests. So if you were stranded on a deserted island and you can only have one single luxury item with you, what would that luxury item be? It can't be any form of air or water transportation to get you off that island, or anything that requires mobile service to call someone to get you off that island. It's you, just you, lots of sand, lots of palm trees, lots of ocean. What would that one single luxury item you would like to have with you?
That's an interesting question. I think at the moment I'm infatuated with this Palmer & Co. champagne that I'm doing a special cuvee with. It's a champagne house out of Reims in France.
Yeah.
And, I'd love to have a case of that with me just in case.
That's a good one. You have to obviously take little sips of it.
Yeah, but not only that, it'll go great with all the fish I'll figure out how to catch. And hopefully there's some some growth on the island that we can harvest some veggies or whatever it is. But I think champagne, and especially this one, is a great pairing for many, many different things.
Charlie Palmer, master chef, hospitality entrepreneur, and author. Thank you so much for joining me on The Luxury Item.
Thank you, Scott. Thanks for having me.
That's it for this episode of the Luxury Item Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you found this useful and entertaining, I would be really grateful if you can share it with a friend or colleague. I would love it if you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really helps other listeners find us. The Luxury Item Podcast is a production of Silvertone Consulting. I'm your host, Scott Kerr. Until next time.